Hello, I am Rian Leuven, President of the Idaho AFL-CIO. Today is March 1st, and we thought it very important that we update you on the legislative process and some of the bills that are important to labor that are moving through the Idaho House. I wanted to update you first on a coalition of labor partners and or associations that we have been working with very closely in the state of Idaho. One of our coalition partners is the Idaho State Education Association and its leaders. The Idaho Education Association is under an assault based on the vote that was taken last November on the Propositions 1, 2, and 3. The Idaho School Board Association has made it its agenda to come back with all of the items that were in Proposition 1. In the State of the State address, the governor of the state of Idaho said that he thought that the process was failed, not all of the issues inside of the propositions. The Idaho Education Association, through its representatives, Robin Nennigan and Bert Marley, have assured me that given the time, they will be able to resolve a lot of the issues that the Idaho School Board Association has brought to the legislature. Two items that are going to be very contentious and hard for them to resolve. One deals with the automatic implementation on the date of June 10 in contract bargaining for their members, and the other one is the one that puts a sunset or a termination based on financial emergencies that will nullify the contracts. If you'd stop and think about that for a second, it's that at our bargaining tables, we just say no, 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 and on a specific date, the company would implement their last and final offer. In one of our testimonies, one of our board members said, we could live with that if this year the company or the school board's implemented and next year the IEA implemented. It's been resonating across the state capitol. That is not going to happen. But I am here today to tell you that they have made a lot of headway, and the IEA and its leadership is working very hard to resolve those issues so that they can put something before the legislature that they believe fits into the will of the people last November. Our sandwich bill, as we called it, the lunch break bill that would guarantee or give employees, both organized and unorganized, the opportunity in an 8-hour day to eat a lunch and have a lunch break. Every employer that's a good employer, most of them that we deal with, understand the value of nutrition and the ability to be a good, productive worker. We stumbled a little bit, but we will be working with the Department of Labor and the Department of Commerce to resolve some of the concerns that came up in the committee this year and made them unable to send the bill to the floor or even give us a print so that we could have an open public hearing. We appreciate all the phone calls and or emails that came into that committee. They were very well received. Representative Holly Highwood said that she received over 100 emails on that issue. The other issue I'd like to talk to you is a transportation bill. It's Senate Bill 1117. And Senate Bill 1117 says that it wants to retain and or return the implementation of heavy or big trucks on the local municipalities, highway districts, and districts of the Idaho Department of Transportation. It wants to give local authority the control over some of those. In and of itself, local control is a great idea when we talk about whether or not we want heavy trucks. The issue, and we are supportive and have not objective to the codification of a pilot project on the southern corridor and the 35 roads that were identified over 10 years ago in a pilot project. That is Senate Bill 1096. That bill is headed to the floor, as well as Senate Bill 117. 117 would give every entity in the state, but is primarily focused because the other bill doesn't discuss northern Idaho routes. Our concern is for the safety of the public, the safety and the upkeep of the highways, and the municipalities that would allow those heavier trucks on the road damages, and thereby increasing tax rates. That has the ability of making, instead of 5 trips, it would reduce the amount of traffic on the road by 20%. In and of itself, that may be good. But those 20% or those other 80% of the trucks will be carrying 25 to 30,000 pounds more than they currently do. And every person that testified before the committee did so from their own perspective. The proponent of the bill, Idaho Forest Group, has even said in testimony that only 2% of their traffic is by heavy trucks, and the other percentage was by rail. So we're not quite sure why they want that, Senate Bill 117, and they are campaigning so hard to do so. I need to ask you a favor. Please go to idaholegislature.gov on your computers. Look up the committee members' names in the Senate Transportation Committee and ask them to not support and endorse Senate Bill 117 when it goes to the floor. That's a very crucial part of us, is getting communication to those senators. We need to tell Senator Keogh, Senator Winder, Senator Bach, and Senator Cherie Buckner-Webb, thank you very much for helping us and supporting our position on that bill. Senator Dan Johnson from Legislative District 6 in and around Lewiston is very concerned about the legislation and the public safety and other things. But he believes that returning that whole process to local control is the best way. We need to send him some emails and talk about damage, our tax rates, and whether or not those that benefit that will help in the cost sharing that is going to be needed to upkeep and maintain those roads. The other senator, Senator Winder, has a lot of seniority and a lot of input with that, and he voted with us. So again, please thank those that voted with us, and let's write letters to the other remaining ones to get that held up or rejected on the Senate floor. There is no reason for Senate Bill 117 to be passed at this time. Now, the next thing is, it's a very contentious issue, and it is the health insurance exchange that has passed the Senate, is now being debated in the House. And let me just tell you, I know there are a lot of fears out there. That bill only encompasses employers with 50 employees or less. It also has some meaningful building of whether or not we expand or extend Medicaid. For those of you that have sat at the bargaining table, you know that the healthcare costs have been rising at over 20% every time you sit at the bargaining table. And in one industrial sector at the bargaining table, it was estimated that the rising healthcare costs in 2006 were as high as $6 an hour. Just stop and think. Some of that is because of the cost shift of those that do not have health insurance. In other words, when people go to the hospital and they don't have health insurance, those providers are going to pass those unfunded costs onto those of us that do have either insurance plans or work for employers that are self-insured. They're going to recoup that money. Some of the issues that are coming up under healthcare exchange and the expansion of Medicaid for those that meet the litmus test of the poverty levels that have been established will take the burden off of the working people and the employers, those good employers that provide health care. And it's time that we need to give those employers, and most definitely the members and the citizens of Idaho, some relief when it comes to health care. I wanted to update you on a process that we've been working with our brothers and sisters of the elevator constructors. They have a grave concern that as economic things got tough, that a lot of spurred industries and or employers or contractors were popping up across the state that did not have the qualifications that were needed to do the work on elevators to provide for public safety, to make sure the employers were getting what they were paying for, and the building owners lessen their liability. We started that process working with the Division of Building Safety and their administrator, Kelly Pierce. We have asked for their help in designing the rules and the process by which that legislation or thought on public safety will move forward. The elevator constructors have been working very diligently, and they have elevator manufacturers, and we are asking for signatory employers to help us in that battle. We started a little later than we should have on that issue this year, but they have hired an outside consulting firm lobbyist group to help them put the nuts and bolts together that need to happen behind the scenes of any legislation, and we hope that we may still have time this year to get that RS before the committee, get it printed, and have it go to the floor. We are winding down on that time frame, but hopefully we can get that before the committee. If not, it gives us more time to work with the departments that are involved in that to make sure we answer the questions before we go to those committees in the legislature. The last thing, and it's something that our brothers and sisters, and I'm very proud and very excited to announce that the professional firefighters of Idaho, PFFI, those also members of the Idaho Association of Firefighters, met and had their annual convention in Boise just this week. We were invited to speak with them on Monday, and after doing so, were approached, and a lot of those locals have filled out their contact information and are now back solidly in the Idaho House of Labor. But more important to that, they have been working 5 to 6 years on legislation that's called the presumptive illness legislation, if you will. And that legislation will enable firefighters, when they are documented and diagnosed by a qualified physician in the area of cancers, that they would be able to, if can be shown that it was a causation of their work and or in the process of fighting fires or any of their job duties, that cancer and those carcinogens caused that cancer, that it would be covered under Idaho workers' comp law. Currently, they are not. And there are a lot of studies that have been done to say that some of the carcinogens that those brave people put themselves into when they fight the fires, trying to put out fires in houses and buildings for public safety, those carcinogens are causing some very drastic cancers. They are prepared, if they get the hearing, to take that, and they have a doctor from Johns Hopkins ready to come testify before the committee to answer the medical questions. Here's what we need, and we need your help. We need your help in getting to the leadership, the Speaker, Scott Bedke, and the Minority Leader, John Rushi, and all of the assistant and majority leaders and assistant minority leaders in the House of the state of Idaho, and ask them to please give that bill a hearing. Right now the bill has been printed, so it's from the routing slip issue, has been printed as a bill, and as that bill, the chairman currently, Representative Harkin, is holding that bill in his drawer. So we are working with our friends and allies in the Capitol building to get that legislation before the committee so we can have that public hearing. Our brothers and firefighters, brothers and sisters of the firefighters deserve no less than to have a public hearing on this important issue, and we support it 110%. So with that, we have been meeting with different constituent groups. We are improving our working relationship with other legislative advisors, and we currently meet every Friday with our labor friends. I would also like to tell you that we have formed the first ever labor caucus. Brother Brad Cederblum out of District 3 has been asked to chair our labor caucus. So as we move forward and we train and remobilize the Idaho labor movement, you will hear more and more from me, whether it be in written form or video form, but you're also going to hear more and more from District Board Member Brad Cederblum. Brad is very tenacious, he's very driven, and I know that he will help us in forming that legislative caucus so we can get you more information, more timely. And if you would, please, our communication department has been working very, very hard to take input and to give you ideas and thoughts and suggestions and links. Please go to the Idaho AFL-CIO webpage and or contact us at the office for information concerning that webpage and any other legislative updates you would like to have. There is a lot of things going on in the Idaho legislature, and just last week a piece of legislation was entered. It was pulled back to the committee, and this legislation, as we call it, the sheep bill, said that if an employer if an employee were to abandon sheep on the range, it would be citable as a misdemeanor, could carry up to a $1,000 fine and 6 months in jail. Now you would think, why does the Idaho State AFL-CIO have any concerns over whether or not a sheep herder leaves his sheep abandoned? It's not whether or not he leaves a sheep abandoned. It's the precedent that is being set by the legislation that says if an employee walks off the job and their employer does not think that it was proper and they call that abandonment, you could be cited by misdemeanor charges, pay a $1,000 fine, and could spend up to 6 months in jail depending upon the judge's wishes. That concerns us. So with that, I appreciate all your support. I hope this answers some of the questions and gives you an update on where we're at. And from the whole entire executive board of the Idaho AFL-CIO, we wish you the best. Your staff and the I-1 director, Denise McDonald, are willing, able, and appreciate all your support. And from them, good day, good luck, Godspeed.